Well, it's that time of the week again for Sterlo's wrap-up, and boy, do we have a lot to talk about. Nothing to do with the National Rugby League, but a fantastic weekend of representative rugby league. The man himself is in the studio. Sterlo.
All smiles today, James.
Oh, Pete, you should be indeed. Series clinched for New South Wales. What a game it was, though. There was so much on the line for the Blues and so many young blokes out there, but stepping up when it mattered most.
Yeah, it was a dramatic night, and we keep saying State of Origin reinvents itself. I think we saw that last night. Both of these teams were better than they were in Melbourne. Their new look. And New South Wales, who've had a very, very tough decade, were able to get the job done under unbelievable circumstances. We saw a penalty try, only the second one ever awarded in Origin football. And New South Wales finished the game with 10 men and have to defend that skinny lead.
It was remarkable just watching the ebbing and flowing of the momentum in that match. Some key moments towards the death, and there always are when it comes to State of Origin. One that perhaps stands out for you, Nathan Cleary, and so much was spoken about his defence in game one at the MCG, and it proved crucial again in the second game.
Yeah, he had such a mature series, didn't he? And he didn't stand out. He wasn't a star as such, but he got the job done. With the number 7 on your back, you have a lot of responsibilities. And I thought he handled those well. And I think it helped having his Penrith teammate James Maloney on his outside. And I thought Maloney really took over proceedings in that last 10 to 15 minutes. So they complemented each other very, very well. But just a couple of tackles in this second half were key for New South Wales. This one, Valentine Holmes gets away down the sideline and Nathan Cleary comes across with an absolute beauty. Steve Morton was out in the crowd last night. He'd have been proud of that kind of tackle.
Oh, yeah.
And then this one, Kalen Ponga gets away. I'm waiting for the big sidestep. He tries to beat James Tedesco on the outside, but Tedesco is able to make the tackle. Now, this is on the other side where we know how great Kalen Ponga can be down the left-hand side with his footwork.
Yep.
But to get through the New South Wales defence on that right-hand side, it adds another string to his bow. But the Tedesco tackle, he had an outstanding series, but maybe no more important play than that tackle late in the game.
11 and a half minutes to go in the game. James Roberts finds himself in the sin bin for a professional foul.
Well, he didn't find himself there, he put himself there.
Yeah, certainly did. And Queensland on the attack. Composure is needed. Ben Hunt, though, was described by Jonathan Thurston after the match in our post-match coverage as a brain snap.
Yeah, it's a really poor play. It's only third tackle. The opponents are down to 12 men. The priority at this time of the game is to keep the football and to stay down there. Now, that's a terrible play because we come back to the 20-metre line. It winds the clock down whilst Roberts is in the bin. Now, fortunately for Ben Hunt, New South Wales come back out to the 20-metre line for a restart, and Latrell Mitchell and Josh Adokar, they mix this up. They get it wrong. And look, young players here, and again, you can't be too critical because they're trying to be positive. If Josh Adokar catches that football, he's nearly away and gone. So you can understand the mentality, but these young players coming into Origin football have just got to understand there's a time and a place, and that was probably one of those occasions where Latrell just had to take the tap, take the ball forward and hold possession because they did have one man out of their line.
Look, going into this series with no Cameron Smith retiring 3 weeks before it started, goal kicking was always going to be a concern for Queensland. Valentine Holmes was chosen, but when you've got the likes of Nathan Cleary and James Maloney as the options for the Blues, it was always going to be an extra string in the bow, wasn't it, for them?
Well, both of those kickers kick it over 80%. Valentine Holmes, I think he had a kick-off with a couple of other players in the Queensland lineup, although Holmes did put one over from the sideline. But in the end, the kicking of James Maloney on the scoreboard was the difference. He had a wonderful series, but it's a great confidence builder for a team knowing that every time you score 4, on most occasions, it's going to be turned into 6. And Maloney, he would have been disappointed with a couple of efforts in last year's series, which were key kicks, but he nailed them this year. He did have Nathan Cleary as a backup, but he didn't need that.
The bit of history made across the park last night, a penalty try. I've only seen it once before in a State of Origin encounter. And this one proved crucial. Being a New South Wales, so I'm sure you were happy with it. Boyd Cordner taken out by Ben Hunt. Was it the right call, though, by the officials?
It was. Look, I'm not a big fan of penalty tries because, how sure do you have to be? But I think on this occasion, especially the side-on shot, I think that shows that Boyd Cordner was behind the kicker. That would have been the first offence. So we would have come back to that as being, if the adjudicators weren't happy with that, it goes against New South Wales. I've got no doubt that Ben Hunt moves to his side, drops the shoulder and takes Boyd Cordner out. The most important thing for New South Wales on this occasion was that the ball sat up, and that allowed Will Chambers to come through, who started behind Boyd Cordner to get the football in the field to play. Now, if the ball runs dead, there would have just been 10 in the bin for Ben Hunt. But the fact the ball sat up, that showed that Boyd Cordner would have had time to have gotten there. Nobody else was around. So I think in the end it's a brave call.
Yep.
I think it's the right call, and I'm embarrassed to admit that I played in 1981 in the game when Mal Meninga was awarded that try for Steve Rogers tackling him without the football. But one of those memories, I suppose, because it wasn't a good one, I just erased straight away. But it's a brave call by the referees, and when it comes to penalty tries, there has to be the minimal amount of doubt, and I think they got that call right. I know the Queensland weren't happy with it, but I think sitting back as a neutral observer, you would say they got it right.
It's not a call you want to be making as official at the death.
No.
When the game is on the line, but Little Elliott probably made it a little bit easier. Look, for Queensland, there were some positives to come out of it. One, the form of Billy Slater in his return match in his farewell series. Yep. That was clear from the get-go. And the young bloke that's going to be taking over that number 1 jersey from next year, a shining light in the forward pack of all things.
I thought they were both magnificent. You saw the difference that Billy Slater made to this football team in the opening 10, 15 minutes. They were so positive. They looked more organised. They looked more confident. His ability to get the defences organised made it difficult for New South Wales to come up the middle so successfully as they had done in Melbourne. And then we didn't know how Kalen Ponga was going to be used in this game, but we got the answer 15 minutes before half-time. Came into the game there, played in the front line, and then he was out there for the full 40 minutes and nearly won the game for his side because, as we just saw, James Tedesco had to come up with a try saver. He's a rare talent. He's an outstanding young man off the field, 20 years of age, 20 years and 85 days. Yeah. The youngest Queensland player to debut for the Maroons since Israel Folau 10 years earlier. This is the first of many origins for this young man, and I think we're all excited to see his involvement. We didn't know what it was going to look like, but in the end, it doesn't really matter whether he was going to play a position or not. Just the very fact he was around the football, buzzing around and displaying his unique talent was enough for all of us to sit back and enjoy.
Quick final thought on State of Origin from last night before we move on to the other big matches from the weekend. Will there be changes for Queensland, do you think, and how important is it for Brad Fittler to get that message across to make this a whitewash in Brisbane?
Well, it is important because you don't get the opportunity too many times. We've only had a couple of whitewashes, so it's a great opportunity. I don't think there'll be changes across the board. I feel really sorry for Regan Campbell-Gillard. I saw him in the sheds last night, and it was kind of hard for him to get too involved in the celebrations because he didn't play game 2, but made sure that he knew that he was a big part of that last night. But I don't think that there will be changes. Can I just say the one disappointment for me last night, James, was the fact that the Shield wasn't awarded. I really think that there should be nothing anticlimactic about an Origin Shield being raised. Now, New South Wales go to Suncorp Stadium. If they get beaten, that would be rather deflating to be lifting the shield after that. And even, I know that Queensland fans are fantastic, but how many fans are going to stick around in a Queensland jersey to watch New South Wales being awarded the shield? There was an opportunity last night to take the shield out there. If New South Wales win in front of their home fans, can you imagine 82,000, of which I would imagine 70,000 would have been New South Wales fans, being there for Boyd Cordner to lift that above his head? I just think, to me, it makes sense so that there is nothing anticlimactic about the shield ever being raised.
I couldn't agree more. But either way, they'll have to do that in Queensland, and whether it's on the back of a win or a loss, we'll find out.
Now, we saw the shield raised on Friday night as well in the women's game, which was a fantastic occasion out at North Sydney
16-10 to the Blues and an absolute nail-biter. 7,000 fans there, Pete. It felt like 17. It was unreal.
Well, it was a great advertisement, wasn't it, for a game that is really developing. 6-all at half-time, 10-all with 5 to go, and then New South Wales were able to score the final try. Isabel Kelly got the 2 tries and was awarded player of the match for this game, and deservedly so. This is it here, back on the inside. Sam Bremner, her speed was a constant menace to the Queensland defence, a little bit like Billy Slater, I would imagine, the way she moves. So it was a great night out there. I think everybody enjoyed it, and it's another big step forward for the women's game. I guess what we're looking at now is how far are we away from a best-of-3 series and maybe the women's game being played as part of the night when the men play as well.
The Pacific Tests on Saturday at Campbelltown Stadium, another great atmosphere there for PNG to upset Fiji earlier in the day, right here on 9. And then the main event, Tonga and Samoa. Tonga getting the job done after a fantastic first half. But the war cries, we saw it last year at the World Cup and then seeing it again here pre-match. They even did one post-match. in front of a packed house, this was just an unbelievable atmosphere.
And they're getting closer and closer. No, it's fantastic. We said on the weekend, I think the reason that these games capture our imagination is that we're back to the purest form of our game. Now, it's not about money, it's not about egos. Now, this is all about representation of family, national and state pride, going back to the women's game as well. And this is a great way to start. And as it turned out, Samoa, with all of this adrenaline pumping, went out and scored in the first minute and a half. Tonga, with their class, eventually came up with a pretty good scoreline in their favour. But I don't think anybody left Campbelltown Stadium disappointed with what they saw. And again, it was an injection into our game, because this is where our game is developing internationally. Tonga are close to being a Tier 1 nation. So that shows that things are advancing. And a really good win for Papua New Guinea on that night as well over Fiji, to show how their game is coming on as well.
Great weekend of footy, Pete. Really enjoyed
Good fun.
it. I'll see you later this week. Wollongong, Adelaide and Cairns coming up as the NRL.
Safe travels, James.
It gets back to business. Yeah, you too. Thank you very much, Sterlo. As always, great time of the week. Sterlo's wrap-up looking back on a big weekend of representative footy. We'll see you Thursday night, live and free from the Gong.